And today we're talking all about the benefits of being bilingual. Now, the advantages have been clear to many people for years, but with language immersion schools and exchange programmes, being bilingual is becoming more and more common. Now, our health and science editor, Julia Seeger, is with me. You've been looking into all of this, Julia. And first of all, it's an interesting issue for us here, isn't it, at France 24? We are a very multilingual newsroom, 4 languages here every day. Why did you want to look into all of this?
I wanted to look into it because there's always this debate within the newsroom of when do you consider that someone is 100% bilingual? And I think here we really need to put an end to this myth. There are different definitions of what it means to be bilingual, different degrees. Of course, the ideal version would be to be able to understand, to write, and to speak, exactly the same way in both languages. But that's actually extremely rare. There's always a dominant language. And also, many researchers are now pushing for another definition, perhaps a more pragmatic view, where someone would be considered bilingual as long as he uses 2 languages in his daily life every day. And under that definition, actually 60% of the world population is now considered bilingual. It can sound as a pretty high figure, but when you think about how many people live in foreign countries and how many dialects still exist in the world, it does make sense indeed. So you can think about Africa, of course, but also Asia. And it's actually in Papua New Guinea that they have the greatest number of dialects, 800 altogether. It represents 10% of all world languages.
Extraordinary stuff. And you've been looking at what effect bilingualism has on our health. Tell us about that.
Exactly. I discovered incredible things as I spoke to Catherine Boucaud. She's a lecturer in multilingual communication at the University of Gand in Belgium. And I asked her what were the effects of bilingualism on a human brain. Let's take a listen.
Un des premiers avantages, c'est que les bilingues auraient une pensée plus créative, plus...
One of the main advantages of being bilingual is that we've found bilingual people have a more creative mind, more flexible, more open-minded. So, to measure that, we ask questions to bilingual and non-bilingual people like, what can you do with a brick? Bilingual people will give obvious answers like build a wall or build a barbecue, but they have also more eclectic answers like filling a mouse hole. So we have witnessed that bilingual people are more creative. It can also be explained by the fact that they have 2 words for one concept. So, for example, in Welsh, school is said gol, but it also means a ladder. So, one word describes 2 different realities, school and ladder. That allows for more creative semantic combinations to be made.
Pour les personnes qui utilisent ces langues-là.
So Nadia, the more vocabulary you have, of course, the more creative, the more broad your thoughts will be, and the more imaginative you'll be. So there's another interesting and big question that people always ask themselves is, does it actually boost cognitive abilities? And here, not all studies actually agree on this. Some studies say that bilingualism is a brain booster, that children will learn and read and write more easily and also learn other languages as well faster, and their executive functions in the brain, so let's say planning, mental flexibility, but also judgment and self-criticism will actually be amplified because they use a mechanism that we call code switching. And this refers to the fact that they're changing from one language to another within the same sentence. So it's kind of like a brain gymnastic that is very unique. Now, not all studies agree on this, but all studies do agree on one fact, that bilingual kids have an easier time focusing on one goal while staying very flexible on how to actually achieve that goal. And that's huge because it's probably one of the main keys to success in life. There's another huge advantage is that scientists have just discovered that in people who are bilingual, all mental deficiency symptoms, like for instance Alzheimer's disease, will only start appearing 5 years later in people who are bilingual rather than in people who aren't bilingual, but they can't explain why. Same thing for people who have probably suffered a stroke. They will get better faster if they're bilingual.
Well, given all of those very clear benefits, Julia, I suppose the next question is, How do you learn a language? It's often said that the age of 6 is a turning point.
It is a turning point indeed. The sooner you expose your child to different languages, the better, of course. Until you're 6 years old, you actually learn a language in a very intuitive manner, so you're going to be imitating what you're hearing, and your kids have this ability to really perceive and reproduce sounds in a great way, and they lose this ability after the age of 6. Now, it's never too late, of course, to learn a language. It's important to remind people of that. In fact, there are thousands of ways of becoming bilingual, and for families, it's important to sit down and to think about what they want for their kids, to really set goals, for those goals to still be realistic and to not take the fun out of it. Of course, it's very important. As a parent, it's not important to be also 100% bilingual to start speaking to the child. The only point that's important is to be able to really communicate with emotion, with intention, in a loving manner as well. Now, parents often fear that it could actually trigger learning disabilities to learn both languages at the same time, but actually science says that this is not true. If there's a learning disability, then it's not going to be explained by the fact that they're bilingual. They would have had those disabilities no matter what. Now, there are different methods that you can use, of course, at home. There's the OPAL method, so it's one person, one language. For greater consistency, every parent will stick to one language, but there's also the time and place strategy. You decide to speak one language, for instance, during the week and another during the weekend. But no matter what, I think the most important thing is just to try to have your kids listen to different languages and really develop their ear through podcasts or stories, for instance.
All right, I've got to work on my French language. You've convinced me, Julia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadia.
Julia Seeger for us there.